Great, thank you. Before I begin, I just want to know how many of you know this picture where this has been taken a screen grab from? Great. So in the climax scene, towards the end of the movie Schindler's List, Oskar Schindler, the factory owner, is presented a ring by the 1,100 Jewish workers whom he had saved from the Nazis. As he slips the ring into his finger, he looks carefully at the ring, and his thoughts turn towards the people he could have saved, but he did not. He breaks into tears and he says, "I wish I could have done more." Now, here is my belief. If Schindler had known about not able to protect the lives of the people he didn't eventually, he would have also not been able to protect the 1,100 people he saved. Now, why do I have this belief? This belief comes from my experience, and at some point in time from all our experiences about the way our experiences have shaped when people come to you and ask for help. When we are growing as a child, we are always eager to be useful to someone, to people around us. We are the heroes and the heroines of our stories. But as we begin to grow, the information and statistics slowly dawn upon us that not all problems are going to go away. And what that actually makes us do is we stop listening to stories as closely as we used to. We stop expecting things to really change. And in the process, if at all we make an effort to make the change, it's not essentially to relieve someone's suffering, but to relieve our own suffering. Essentially, we are buying the distance. We are buying a trade that allows us to continue with our own lives and not bothered by somebody else. Now, behavioral scientists call this pseudo-inefficacy, which is essentially knowing information about lives you can't save can actually stop or sometimes demotivate us from saving lives that we could possibly. And this is essentially how most of us have been. You hear a powerful story of somebody needing your help. You read it, your immediate instinct is to help that person. And slowly it dawns upon you, there are 90 million children in this country who do not have same access or who are facing the same problems. And then you begin to ask, am I really adding any value to people's lives? You stop acting on it. And I was no different as well. However, 6 years ago, just a few weeks before my 21st birthday, I actually read this book by Dr. Muhammad Yunus. Most of you might be aware who he is, but to those who are unaware, Dr. Muhammad Yunus won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2005 for his pioneering work in modern microfinance. And I'm sure most of you know what microfinance is, but a very brief version is, think of the basic services, financial services that you get from your bank, and imagine that to be tailored to the needs of the poor. The first and foremost thing that I really liked was he showed a new way of helping someone. He showed a new way of helping someone that did not involve guilt, that was actually inspiring. But that was not actually the reason that excited me. The second reason that actually excited me was the stories of the poor that he actually wrote in the book were much more different than what I had in our minds. The poor were crippled, the poor need our sympathy, the poor are disadvantaged. But when you start reading the stories, it's almost like being poor was just a by the way. He talks about strong, smart, hardworking, small business owners, mostly women, who wake up every day to make lives better for themselves and that of their families. All they needed to do was to get small amount of training and small capital, and to do it quickly and to do it better. Now I was so inspired by this book, and I was in fact doing my undergrad in Singapore, that I actually took a sabbatical from college and decided to go down to India and see for myself, work for an organization and see for myself what the lives of the poor were. And my job involved me traveling across India, interviewing women like them who've received small amounts of capital, 5,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees, 12,000 rupees, to start and grow a business, or to get a water connection at home, to buy a solar light, and so on. And that was the first time I was able to make some kind of a personal connection to this big amorphous group called poor. What was more interesting to me was not the radical changes that people actually envisioned, but the amazing small little details of change. And those small littles of change, even after talking to people after people, were unique and very different. So for example, I would meet goat herders who would have used the money to buy more goats and grow their business. I would have met a small plot farmer who would have bought a solar light so that she can go and switch on the motor pumps for her irrigation. Electricity is free in most parts of the country in the night, and thus avoiding snake bites. I meet siblings who now have more time to get ready to go to school because they no longer have to walk and fetch water for their households. Their lives changed in small changes. There were no rags to riches stories, but incremental shifts. And how they used those incremental shifts also, was an amazing sort of details. For example, with the little money that they earned, they would probably shift their kids from a government school to a private school. They would start buying and cooking meat on weekends. They would be able to buy new clothes or probably stitch new clothes for their children during festivities. And as simple as having a roof and a door for their toilets. And this kind of change actually helped me think that the stories are not about here to there. The stories were always about moving in incremental shifts. These amazing little details of change, even after I spoke to 20 women, they all had. And this was the first truly humbling experience for me, is because this actually made me believe each one of us can have some kind of positive impact in our own way. In fact, none of them actually made me feel bad about them at all. They wanted to invest more in their capabilities to grow and prosper their business. Now, hearing all these stories actually and being inspired by this actually turned into a small idea. And the idea was essentially, if I am inspired, if I am intrigued by these small stories, how about sharing the same stories with my friends and family so that who are also eager to support them? And that small idea turned into Milaap. So after 12 months of working in India, I went back to Singapore to quickly wrap up my course, and thank God for that, I did that. And then came back to India in the summer of 2010 with just a digital camera and a makeshift blog to share these stories. So our first pilot was essentially, interviewing 15 small entrepreneurs in Maharashtra and putting their stories on the blog, and basically we spammed our friends and family members to lend. In fact, there was no such platform catering to India at that point in time. Most people did not even know whether it was legal, so we kind of said, hey, we've spoken to some of the regulators offhand, we're not sure, but if someone has to go to the jail, you can always point to me, we are good. And the money came in overnight. We sent the money to Maharashtra and things began to move. These 15 small entrepreneurs invested in their businesses. Some of them started repaying back. They invested in their communities and so on. By August 2011, all the 15 loans were repaid successfully, much to the surprise of our lenders. And that's when we officially called this small little pilot experiment that we did is now worthy enough as a full-fledged activity. So midway from 2011 to 2012, the first year we did 40 lakhs. The second year, the amount raised to 3 crores. The third year, 8 crores, and we are now well into our 4th year. We have done close to 25 crores of capital, crowdfunded in small denominations of 500 rupees, 1,000 rupees, 2,000 rupees, $50, $100 from lenders across 100 countries. And these people have impacted 20,000 lives in 15 states, 20,000 stories, 15 states, and 100,000 people. Now, the numbers and statistics are really fun to talk about, and I can tell you about stories of people lending from Fiji, people lending from Mozambique, Suriname, and so on. But for me, the most powerful thing about Milaap is these 20,000 stories that we have told people. And that actually reinforced a faith that if we are able to connect with people at a story level, people are much more willing to take the action that they always wanted to. Late last year, this idea kind of took a bigger shape, and we asked ourselves, hey, there is only so much that Milaap itself can do. We are restricted in our efforts. How about we open up the platform? How about we open up the platform so that anybody who wants to champion a cause, anybody who wants to push his idea will have the tools to go about doing it and gather the resources from the community to do it. And this was just a small little idea that we launched it, and we, in analogy, we almost call it like an open source, and we called it the Milaap Open. And we were humbled by the response. In just 3 months, we were able to raise over 12 million rupees from 7,000 people across the world. And the kind of ideas and the kind of initiatives people have started and backed are phenomenal, something that even blew our mind. So for example, TED speaker and a famous trafficking activist, Sunita Krishnan, she ran out of funds to release her movie, documentary movie on trafficking, and she needed 22 lakhs to secure the release of her movie in theaters in 3 weeks. 700 people across the world came to support her cause. This girl, Sheetal, she grew up in Mumbai's red light district, Kamatipura, and she secured an admission to go to US drum school because music was her passion, and the schools in India wouldn't take her because she did not finish class 10. And seeing her story, over 1,000 people came in to support her, and finance her admission to go to US. Vikas is just another, IT professional, except that he is fully gung-ho about football. And he said, if there are European sports leagues, why not we bring a sports league for our own children who are studying in municipal corporations? He built the Indian Super League for kids, and over 50 teams are now participating. There are 50 team owners, much more than IPL, ISL, and all those combined, each of them putting in 25K to support him, so much that Lisa Hayden is his brand ambassador now. Shibayan Rana is a citizen journalist sitting in Assam, showcasing the stories from the Northeast, giving voices to the stories in Northeast. He just said, I need more digital cameras so that I can tell more stories. And overnight, he was able to raise 3+ lakhs to showcase so that he can train 30+ journalists. There are so many stories, but I'll finish with one final story. This is Surya Prakash, who is an IT professional by the day, works in Patna. He wanted to build a mobile library in East Champaran district. And all he needed to do was he wanted to buy a van, and along with the van, some more books. And today, his dreams were made possible, and he is impacting over 4,000 children every month in a mobile library. Now, if we look at what Milaap did in this whole process, it is literally nothing. We just provided people the tools and also the belief that if you have an idea, if you have a vision to go and do things, we will gather the people to support your beliefs and to make your vision happen. And with that hope, what we were able to do was a lot of people who had meaningful intent, we galvanized it into action. I spoke about the Schindler's List story, so I want to leave with the same story, leave a final thought with the same story. So when Schindler looks at the ring had something inscribed on it, and in Hebrew, because it was given by the Jew. And the ring essentially says, whoever saves one life saves the world entire. Now, Schindler had saved 1,100 Jewish workers. Today, the descendants of those Jewish workers, their families, successful generations, count to around 6,000 people. Now, imagine if Schindler at that point in time had decided, whatever I do is not going to make any difference because the Holocaust is imminent anyway. There are 6 million people who are killed anyway. What difference will my initiative do? Now, Schindler was not a hero. Schindler was just a pragmatic businessman who decided to do one heroic act, which was to save his own workers. And that's what we are going to tell you today, which is you don't have to be a hero. You just have to make heroic acts. And when you make those heroic acts, trust me, the world will conspire to make your dreams happen. Thank you.